I won't even stress. Just kill him softly with my press. Won't even address. They say it lonely at the top. This the best. And even if we die today, gon' live forever. Live forever.
Daddy pants ain't with 3 S's. Pick up S's. No S's on my chest, but all these diamonds got me blessed. Usually I don't do this. Dumb it down, go stupid. Since 17, been counting M's, my bank account's on goofy. They say gave up. Now who know what the truth is? Chicago full of, my garage is full of hoops. Got that southern drawl and all that. My like ball bags. The South got something to say, and all y'all can't get y'all ball back. If I ain't a hot boy, then what do you call sacks? Daddy fat, y'all never ball back. Like clocks in the wintertime, we stay eating like it's dinner time. Been feasting and feasting and feast big, but it ain't no rhyme. We don't know the meaning of drought, cause we keep it so wet, boy, I swear now it's been a while. Just speaking in general, boy, there is no formidable opponent or at that bone that never step on it. When you wanna mind the kind of giving hope when they down and out. Dig a hole so deep, ain't no climbing out. Watch.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
Just kill him softly with my press. Won't even
The Rams are now on the clock.
Don't you see me out here shining better?
The Saints are now on the clock.
Won't even stress. Just kill him softly with my press. Won't even address. They say it lonely at the top. This the best. And even if we die today, don't live forever. Live forever.
The Giants are now on the clock.
Listen, just like I told Coco, my vision is you already know though. So go slow, back my logo, for show, Coco. Get down on the. Yo, listen, just like I told Coco, my vision is you already know though. So go slow, back my logo, for show, Coco. Now get down on it.
Adam, what can you tell us about the Giants' newest player?
He's a Heisman-winning defender. Let me say that one more time. He won the Heisman, and he's a defensive player. Need I say more? You can imagine how well he played this season to win the biggest award in college over several offensive playmakers. The trophy was well-deserved, and according to Matt Miller, he projects really well as a defender in the NFL. I think this is a home run pick, and it's great to see a defender get some well-deserved recognition.
Our very own Adam Schefter has more to say about this pick.
Entering the season, he was the surefire #1 ranked wide receiver according to several experts, including Matt Miller. As the season wore on, a series of inconsistent performances had this ranking in doubt, with several other top performers jumping him. Even after a superb performance late in the season that saw him record double-digit catches and over 200 yards, he still couldn't gain much ground on the leaders, ending the season at the #4 spot in Miller's wide receiver rankings. He's demonstrated he can make the big plays, but the jury is still out on whether he's the type of pick that can develop into the NFL superstar he was considered just a year ago.
Picked up Walls, Adam. What's the latest on him?
Once thought of as a top 3 offensive line pick in the draft, a series of poor performances that saw him miss several routine blocks and surrender multiple sacks had most scouts losing interest. Ross Tucker felt that he simply fell into some bad habits with his footwork, citing a lack of focus that sometimes happens when a young kid with talent begins reading his own press clippings, and becomes enamored with where he'll land in the NFL. Tucker may have been onto something regarding him reading the press clippings. After seeing reports of his draft stock slipping, he put on a performance at the Combine that turned many ahead. Not often are you granted a second chance, and that's exactly what he's received by being drafted. His new team is hoping he'll make the best of it.
The Titans are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock.
Man, too broke to pay attention. Man. Yeah. Man, listen. All I got is this ambition. That's it. A couple million make you stand different. Hey. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. I'm like, man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. The game is friendless, the pain is endless. The game changed, I blame these lame pretenders. My friends in Benzes, parked at the entrance. Inside, you still hear the engine. Like, ren, this is your ending. If you're offended, I dare you defend it. This rushing through my blood like the Kremlin. I'm back with a vengeance, and this is what the sound of revenge is. Win-win, man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. Hey. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. I'm like, man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. Where I come from, you can't visit. I talk money, I guess you understand different. Hand gestures counting till my hands blister. You can't miss us louder than Fran Drescher. Pinky rings, hand kisses, soprano. I feel like Paulie Castellano in designer stitches. I heard him say I made Rihanna. Mind your business, what kind of honor is this? I'm trying to see Madonna, all kind of riches. In Miami, dining with the finest. Everybody acting kind of vicious. These politicians won't let my brother visit. I'm like, man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. I'm like, man, listen. All I got is the same.
The Ravens are now on the clock.
Make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. He's a fake baller, globe trotter, bank account $4. No comma, I know you wanna pop collars. Pop collars, I know you wanna pop collar. Top dollar, pull up in that top dollar. Yeah. She got that top dollar. Top dollar. Yeah.
The Chargers are now on the clock.
All I got is this ambition. A couple million make me stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. I'm like, man, listen.
The Lions are now on the clock.
A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it.
The Redskins are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock.
That's it.
You're getting way too big for your boots. You're never too big for the boot. I got the big size toes on my feet. Your face ain't big for my boots. Kick up the you. Man, know that I kick up the you. Then boy dare try to stop the truth. How dare you to stop the truth? Look, you're getting way too big for your boots. You're never too big for the boot. I got the big size toes on my feet. Your face ain't big for my boots. Kick up the you. Man, know that I kick up the you. Then boy dare try to stop the truth. How dare you to stop the truth? Wanna come round there like a bad boy, do it. Want all the talking, go on and do it. Running through the party, bottle of it.
Texans have just made Hartman their guy. Let's hear more about him from Adam.
I think if you go back and look at his all-star performance, you'll see what kind of linebacker he can be for this team. He was a tackling machine during the all-star game, one of the few defenders to finish with over 10 tackles that day. But what scouts liked most out of his day was his sense of awareness and ability to read where the ball was going. He played with confidence and never let the option or play action catch him off guard, finishing with several tackles in the backfield. The GM loved what he saw out of him during All-Star Week, and it was a no-brainer taking him with this pick.
Do the road in my socks like who's gonna stop me? You, him, little man. I got blue slims. Don't be an idiot. Move smart. I've been killing it. New king. You weren't ready for my new stuff. You're a boy by yourself. Go and group up. And when Crep went states for the BTs, I was covering Crep like a boot cut. If mad, it's a family ting, straight family ting. Dumb man, I broke no salary ting. Had a young ting called Amy telling me to come round hers on a Valerie ting. Hashtag Murky Academy ting. You were like art and the gallery ting. Dumb boy there wanna chat about bars, wanna chat about. You're getting way too big for your boots. You're never too big for the boot. I got the big size toes on my feet. Your face ain't big for my boots. Kick up the you. Man, know that I kick up the you. Then boy dare try to stop the truth. How dare you to stop the truth? Look, I'm too hot.
The Vikings are now on the clock.
I'm the man of the house when my show sold out at
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
on my boombox. Still meat from the stew pot. Man, I'm go sick when my tune drops. Little man, that's a hooplo, not a hoopla. What? Pronounce it right. I go Maggie, I'm down to die for this. I don't care, bro, I'm down. Man, stress, so I'm bound to like my slips. Wait, I'm bound to ride for flips. Real G's gonna ride around to this. Man, I got no time to write at this. I never left my 9 to 5 for this waste man thing. I don't care what.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
If it gets mad, make a young boy take man's things. Try to tell me I'm way too big to rebel. Nah, man, you're never too big to rebel. I was in the O2 singing my lungs out rude, but you're never too big for Adele. Leave my yard, blow a kiss to my girl. Salute to my sister as well. Gotta keep trophies down at my mum's bit. Man, I'm getting way too big for my show. Man, I see bare MCs on the sideline, but I still got a couple bangs in the pipeline. Man, I got grown men at me. You're getting way too old for the timeline. You're getting way too old for a diss. Should've looked after your kids. Get out the booth, go home to your son. It's never too late to commit. It's like man love, put my name in a random flat, get a plane to Qatar. This year I learned how to take care of business. Next year I'll learn how to play the guitar. You're getting way too big for your boots. You're never too big for the boot. I got the big size toes on my feet. Your face ain't big for my boots. Kick up the you. Man, know that I kick up the you. Then boy dare try to stop the truth. How dare you to stop the truth? Look, you're getting way too big for your boots. You're never too big for the boot. I got the big size toes on my feet. Your face ain't big for my boots. Kick up the you. Man, know that I kick up the you. Then boy dare dare try to suck the truth? How dare you to suck the truth?
I look up. So many.
Let's go to Adam now, who's got more on the Patriots' last pick.
Like football, rugby's a sport that's played with guys of all shapes and sizes. In his case, he was one of the big guys pushing and pulling blocks in the center of the pitch. He was playing rugby for a university in Australia before he was recruited to transfer and play football for 2 seasons here in America. His first year was spent adjusting to the game, getting used to the different rules and how to play his position properly. The guy even had to adjust how he tackled now that he had to wear pads and a helmet. But his second year is really where we started to see what he could potentially do. He's a physical player at the line of scrimmage. The team was able to pick up a good addition to its line with a bit of an interesting history.
What's in common is they both pay respect to me. I get in my way from Friday to Friday.
The Cowboys are now on the clock.
Came a long way from that Marvin. I pull out the driveway like I'm in a car chase speeding. And if my she know I'm leaving. No text, no call.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
No P code, no time to change clothes, same clothes. Love if you're living by the same code. G code, leave. You do that to me, back to my destiny. Penthouse, bird's eye view, that's a nest for me. I got myself out of debt, so when you see me, know you somebody I'll never need. Sacrifices. So many sacrifices. Straight up. I done gave up so much free time.
Let's go to Adam now, who has more on the Bears' last pick.
My girl showed me less, you know I make sacrifices.
He came away from the combine with the Workout Warrior designation. It's a title that helps some sleepers become stars and some busts become, well, busts. The question was, which category did he fall under? Well, in his defense, if you look at his film, it seems to match up well with what he can do in the weight room. He's a physically gifted athlete and knows how to use it in games. If I had to pick out what kind of workout warrior he is, I call him Boom. We'll see if I'm right.
I'm my energy, focus on the inner me, never on it.
Pick's been made. Let's go to Adam Schefter to hear more about the player.
In what could be seen as a controversial pick, here's a player who has been followed by quite the reputation as a wild child during his years in college. Numerous social media outlets followed and shared his off-field collegiate exploits, submarining his draft stock. Even with his party boy perception, many of my sources told me that this was simply a case of boys will be boys and not the foreshadowing of a larger issue. Look for this coaching staff to keep him extremely busy, hoping to avoid any unwanted publicity. This task may be easier said than done, especially given all the potential off-field distractions that come with being in the NFL. He has the potential to be his own worst enemy, and should he be unable to focus on the opportunity ahead of him, this pick could end up being one of the biggest busts of the draft.
That's gonna wanna make your friends come. Make way with the timing. Tell me. Why can't y'all recognize that we all came from sacrifice? Why can't y'all recognize that we all came from sacrifice? 10 toes, yeah, you gotta stay down there. Just some young, looking for a way out. And people watching, yeah, I gotta skip town. Hit my phone if you need a hold.
I done made sacrifices.
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
So many sacrifices. Straight up. I done gave up so much free time, knowing time ain't free. I sacrificed it. My girl showed me less, you know I make sacrifices. And if it's real love, then you make sacrifices. To get ahead, man, you gotta make sacrifices. That's how hungry my appetite is. Yeah.
The Bills are now on the clock.
She was a slave. I could only imagine all the sacrifice she made. I could only imagine all that she had to take. I'ma make sure all the she gave wasn't in vain. I sacrificed for your entertainment, boy. I'm Mr. Anderson in the Matrix. Check the last name, it's all facts. In the human race, it's all about pacing. Look at all the ones I outlasted. I'm the one at the end, like I count backwards.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
Till the afterlife, make a sacrifice.
The Rams are now on the clock.
Why can't y'all recognize that we all came from sacrifice? recognize that we all came from.
The Saints are now on the clock. All right, now that the pick's in, let's go to Adam. Adam, what can you tell us about this guy?
When I ask scouts around the league what his biggest asset is, they always point to his father. His dad is a high school coach that knows how to consistently finish in the top of the school's division. And ever since he was able to walk, he's been on the sidelines for every game. Even after he leaves practice at night, he's still getting advice from his dad at home. And from what I've heard from scouts who watched him play, you can tell the extra coaching has helped. Even during interviews at the Combine, I was told by several GMs that he was one of their favorite players to talk to. He has his dad's eye for the game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him become a coach one day himself. I like him a lot, and he'll be a great addition to the team.
It's okay, yeah. Either way, young, getting paid.
The 49ers are now on the clock.
Because they don't want to put some money in my pockets. It's okay, yeah. Either way, a hater always gonna hate, yeah. Mad at me cause I'm trying to feed my team. I'm supposed to make it out and I don't bring my No way, yeah. They ones and they here to stay, yeah. I heard these always hating, said I never make it. I heard these always talking with them. It's okay, yeah. It's okay, yeah. I heard he's mad at me cause I'm getting money. I heard he's mad at me cause he's on me. It's okay, yeah. It's okay, yeah. I heard he tryna lie me, but I ain't no dummy. It's okay, though, got it, you really want it. I spent 13 on the ring and now I feel unlucky. Hey, she love my diamond ring, she said she wanna touch it. It's okay, I get 30K just to hit the stage. Sip, hit my Michael in my Michael J. I get cake, I cannot complain. Been finessing since I was a kid in the second grade. Selling lemonade, get paid. Hold up, wait, can I get paid? Yawn, in a break, feel like I'm in space. See a snake, kill a snake, get paid. Get left every day, so get your straight. I heard these always hating, said I never make it. I heard these always talking with them. It's okay, yeah. It's okay, yeah. I heard he's mad at me.
The Seahawks are now on the clock.
He's mad at me, good he's on me. It's okay, yeah. Mad cause I'm trying to feed my family.
The Titans are now on the clock.
Enemy, I had to stun on the dad I'm supposed to stunt with. Had to cut you off, you was on some done. You was supposed to be my dog, why you hate on me? They say success, turn your friends to some.
The Bengals are now on the clock.
It's crazy, cause it's shining, now you act shady. Yeah, but I guess it's okay. My mama told me you would show me your ways. Yeah, but I gotta check with him. I had the bands. Pull up in the land. Diamonds on me look like Erdy. Erdy's always hating, said I never make it. I heard he's always talking with them. It's okay, yeah. It's okay, yeah. I heard he's mad at me cause I'm getting money. I heard he's mad at me cause he's on me. It's okay, yeah. It's okay, yeah.
Like the way it sounds, Frody? Yeah. Just let me breathe for a minute, man. Just let me breathe. Just let me breathe for a minute, man. Just let me breathe for a minute. Just let me breathe. It's too hot, drop the top off the wagon. Lay back, fire like dragon. Man, I'm flying past Saturn. Out of here like I ain't that savage. Two. It's like I'm at the studio with Michael. You can hear me dancing on the beat. Bam, about to put a mansion on the beach. 100 Latins in your lobby. That's what happens when you're around with body. And I put that in my mommy. I will never give my heart to a I can just make a dance that goes with this song. Then I'ma be on. Basic, gon' dance to it. Basic, everywhere, gon' dance to it. Just let me breathe for a minute. Just let me breathe for a minute. Just let me breathe for a minute.
The Ravens are now on the clock.
Let me breathe for a minute. Just let me breathe for a minute, man. Just let me breathe for a minute. White Range Rover, ball in it. You gotta, baby, shake that, shake that, shake that. You gotta, baby, shake that, shake that. I got 2 shows, I'm about to pitch another. Throwing alley-oops to my brothers. We all shine, nobody victims. I'm on these sweatsuits, black pippins. I swag different. That's why the money in the bag different. Come up short, you left your fam. I lay on beaches and swerving whips. You ain't serving, you just an urban myth. Every day, get ride around Queens on the jet ski, it's me. Every day, get to the day I die. Every day, get, man, I that, and I that, bouncing up and down.
The Chargers are now on the clock.
Just let me breathe for a minute. Just let me breathe for a minute. Just let me breathe for a minute. White Range Rover, ball in it. Let me breathe for a minute. Just let me breathe for a minute, man.
The Lions are now on the clock.
For a minute. White Range Rover, ball in it.
Adam, what can you tell us about that last pick?
If you go back and watch his pro day workout, you'll see this guy was a beast. One NFL defensive line coach put him through a brutal series of drills, and he came out of each one hungry for more. Matt Miller watched him on the sidelines and noticed he never took a knee, never got water, was always quick back to the line for another round. I spoke with the coach who ran his drills, and even he came away very impressed. It was his goal to find the kid's breaking point, but it never made an appearance. He's got a motor I can see causing fits for any offensive line. With this pick, their defensive line just got a much-needed injection of energy and attitude.
Squeeze like asthma. It's rare wrath when I wear wrath. Bear wrath when I wear wrath. Might invest into some rap shit. Lord, still shit wrath. And I'm dripping on rags. Brick gonna be the tag. Do the digital dash. Yeah, I'm boasting, never brag. Please don't touch my rag. Or the Chris Van Nash. Alessandra Gucci glasses. The W Anderson collab. Yeah, you probably like it. Yeah, you drop it on the. I'ma buy another. Cause boys bring it back. Yeah, you know how to make it laugh. Plus and keeping tabs. I'ma fly first class. Quavo hit him with it. Please don't touch my rap.
Don't step on my Russ Simmons. Don't step on my Russ Simmons. Don't step on my Russ Simmons. Do you know how much I'm spending? My closet is worth about $1 million. To the little of the runway. Neck, then the kitchen. Ralph Simmons, all kind of crazy colors, living colors, left wrist, roll it, ice. Mason Margiela, my sweater, mama told me never settle. Ralph Simmons, don't lace him, got your wanna.
Huh? What? Don't wanna talk about the paper. I swear to God, these be haters. They be hating, I feel out of live in cul-de-sac, don't get along. Ooh, right with my neighbors, diamonds on my neck and roll it on. Now I later got undefeated flavors. I'm with my lifesaver. Ooh, feel like Darth Vader. I'm a boss, you know I might riff it. Ooh, rap in my basement. Yeah. But you know that I'm gon' face it. Wait, that's the reason that they mad. Color Uzi, yeah, he made it. Yeah, I wear that rap for I made it. Yeah, I wear that rap for I made it. Yeah, got that rap all in my basement. Yeah, once they got patience. Yeah, I'm famous. Yeah, put myself on top of Mark Jacob. Hey, making no place with my label. I get it, I count it. 100 on my table.
Sterling silver laser. Rubies red, my skin too black to blush, too red to six, not pages. This ain't on the wizard up.
The Vikings are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock.
Porcelain, water CC, backwoods, Raph dragging on the floor. In it. I'm torching the road in these Gucci flames. Stuck to the pavement, they glued. I'm 2.5 million the venue and 2,500 the tube. cold like I'm sick with the flu. I cover my face and I'm.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
Yeah, please don't touch my ride.
They just picked up McBride. Adam, what's the latest?
The main concern scouts have expressed to me is his lack of proper footwork technique. At the combine, he stumbled several times during pass blocking drills, even falling once or twice. It'll take more than being physically gifted to block in the NFL. He's going to need to work on his ability to bend and maintain proper balance when moving around. Right now, pass rushers would have a field day getting him off balance and pushing him aside, but I've been told by coaches that his footwork can definitely be worked on. Grace isn't his strong suit right now, but we'll see if that can change.
Yeah. Yeah, you know
The Vikings are now on the clock.
Yeah, you know I've been ballin'. Ay, every day I'm shot calling. I'm a strike. Make it rain just to let you know I've been ballin'. Ay, yeah, I've been ballin'. Yeah, just to let you know I'm ballin'. I'm a strike. Make it rain just to let you know. Tell a hater get up on my face. Yeah, I've been ballin' since like yesterday.
The Bears are now on the clock.
All this money all up in the way. All this money in the way.
The Jets are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock.
Every day I'm shot calling. I'm a strike. Make it rain just to let you know I've been ballin'. Yeah, I've been ballin'. Yeah, just to let you know I'm ballin'. I'm a strike. Make it rain just to let you know.
Now that he's been picked, Adam, tell us more about Tolliver.
I'm not surprised to see him taken with this pick, given he was probably one of the most dominant defensive linemen in college this season. His combination of athleticism and set of pass rush moves gave college offensive linemen fits and gave him a leg up on the rest of the competition. Pass rushers are at a premium in the NFL these days, and when someone with his talent is available, you need to take him. If his performance this season is any indication, he has the potential to be a playmaker on the defensive line for years to come.
Every day I'm shot calling. I'm a strike. Make it rain just to let you know I've been ballin'.
All right, let's go to Adam Schefter, who's got more on this pick.
There have been plenty of incredible moments in college football history, but rarely do you see a game end in a safety. Late in the fourth quarter, his team was down, and its opponent was trying to run out the clock. However, he came hard off the snap, demolished two blockers, and crashed down on the quarterback before he even had time to hand off the ball. That safety was enough to give them the win and send his draft stock soaring. His raw strength alone was enough for this team to take a chance on him, and we'll see if he can develop into a dominant defensive lineman.
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
Yeah, they gonna look at you different when you moving forward. But you stick to the code, you get yours, I get mine. Yeah.
The Dolphins are now on the clock.
Entourage, check my repertoire. Jim Jones, everywhere I go, you know it's reppin' time. It's reppin' time. When Latifah ready, when we set it off, we set it off. If they sleeping on me, I'ma wake them up. They fakers. I really do. I'm kicking up the rent is due. Plus I got my mama and my kiddies too. They growing up. Time is moving faster. What we wasting for? No holding back.
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
Oh, you that we all we got. I go out for my squad and I put that on squad. All I got is my word and my word is my bond. Squad. Yeah, they gon' look at you different when you moving forward. Shoulders, but just stick to the code. You get yours, I get mine. Squad.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a trade.
The pressure's on, finesse strong. Plus I got my team around me heavy, ain't no extra pros. You can keep them. Giuseppe's on delusional. Who gon' be there for you if you lose it all? Question that, who gon' have your mama back? Think about it, it's so much more than life, take advantage. We gon' get this money, stack this paper and be alright. We gon' run it, keep on finish on sight. I go out for my squad and I put that.
The Bills are now on the clock.
All I got is my word and my word is my bond. Yeah, they gon' look at you different when you moving forward. But just stick to the code, you get yours, I get mine.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
Pulling up with
The Rams are now on the clock.
done sang with the roof. Oh my goodness. You sitting looking stupid.
The Saints are now on the clock.
I would take notes if I were you. Oh my goodness. This was designed with the stars, the square and the cross, so we know true north. Oh my goodness. Smiling with 50 carats in my jaw. Oh my goodness. The law, it's a shame, rhyme. Crime. It's a shame they let us jump out of Bentleys with dirty vans. Hit the stage for 15 minutes, get 30 bands. Swiss bank counting clean money with dirty hands. With some hood that's ready to with the. Since I came in, it made my name a name brand. French, Paris clubbing like a caveman. We threw up the pyramids, now they say we Illuminati. I'm a tsunami, what the is a little yachty. No blood diamonds, I rock gold like a king. Jury so cold, made them blow the nose off the Sphinx. You think I'ma be some type of role model? I go full throttle, desperado, that's the motto.
The Giants are now on the clock.
The grotto, Brazilian model, she mean mugging like Frida Kahlo. Drinking it with an Alicia Machado. I'm the ticket, you just hit the lotto. Pulling up with the coupe. Oh my God.
The Panthers are now on the clock.
The roof. Oh my goodness. You sitting looking stupid on the stoop. Oh my goodness. I would take notes if I were you. Oh my goodness. This was designed with the stars, the square and the cross, so we know true north. Oh my
The Steelers are now on the clock.
Oh my goodness. The law, it's a shame, rhyme. Young Vic the diamonds, the finest. I shine like puff shine. Shines up, I sign to the rock cause I'm timeless. Top off the Mozzie, my behavior is mindless. On kids, we major, you mindless. Fresh out the cell to the booth. Drop the roof, I'm still in the hood. Tell, shoot. Hope with a club. The judge, you rappers is false flagging, you a fashion. What's cuz, what you know about? What's Velo? Why Barry Lee, your head ringing? Free Big Mensa, I'm a star, chain swinging. This that music, you can blame Reagan. I'm ball mayin' without paying. Y'all playing, we playing. My Himalayan. Gelato, that's a sacrificial lamb. I'm seasoned cam, no matter, blam. Pulling up with the coupe. Oh my goodness. Must have done same with the roof. Oh my goodness. You sitting looking stupid on the stoop. Oh my goodness. I would take notes if I were you. Oh my goodness. This was designed with the stars, the square and the cross, so we know true north. Oh my goodness. Smiling with 50 carats in my jaw. Oh my goodness. Yeah. The law, it's a shame, rhyme, crime.
Every other night I'm outside with the. You ain't got chips. The world, you got chips. You could the next man's girl. Sounds harsh, but they been ripped apart my world. The way Kiss told it should never be misquoted. That you wave on the camera, we've been told it.
The 49ers are now on the clock.
So your streams and downloads could never match the kids. We could go foreign until it's boring. My sheep will keep jumping the fence until you're snoring. Street poetry, I'm more Wale for Lauren. Till the world is mine like Illmatic and Lauren. Written on to a table full of fresh skin in the skin. Type of rappers we know got the right numbers on it. Burn the Carter down like I'm Nino.
Pulling up with the coupe. Oh my goodness.
Must have done same with the roof.
Oh my goodness.
You sitting looking stupid on the stoop.
Oh my goodness.
I would take notes if I were you.
Oh my goodness.
This was designed with the stars, the square and the cross, so we know true north.
Oh my goodness.
Smiling with 50 carats in my jaw.
Oh my goodness.
The law, it's a shame, rhyme, crime.
Rather you than me. If you've been with me from Port of Miami, it's been a journey. Ain't nothing changed. A little stronger, a little wiser.
The Seahawks are now on the clock.
Blame it on America. I'm pulling off the lot, I bought the cash. Her future bright, don't give nobody bad. Be looking good.
The Titans are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock.
Running with the poor attitude, they got rich calisthenics. Walking in the courtroom, sipping on the beverage. I know the judge, so I got a lot of leverage. This a fetish. Fully loaded on the 7. Your dog get a dime, you never wrote a letter. Still in the box, got a rapping acapella. Kim Treasure, people with the weather. I got it, boy, don't make me.
The Ravens are now on the clock.
He knocking on the door and know the password. Gave me his blessings while I'm hotter than the last verse.
Dead presidents, dead presidents. Dead presidents, hit them dead presidents.
Let's go, all my little militant. Let's go, I'm innocent.
The Chargers are now on the clock. The Lions are now on the clock. The Redskins are now on the clock.
I got that if like Tommy Lee. I make money. On my third passport, and I got at the airport.
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
Busting down 100 in the bathtub. Get some house shoes. I got money. I got war wounds. Get the cushion on that. Ain't no dance moves. I was posted on the stoop, hanging with my Haitians. On the news, on front pages. Ain't no relations. I was stacking being Franks and Boston. 2 times in a row.
The Browns are now on the clock.
Cause they easy. I'm in the freezy. She love me like she need me. I got my Maybach.
The Vikings are now on the clock.
I make up every single day. I judge a vulture when I.
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
Dead presidents, dead presidents. Dead presidents, hit them dead presidents.
Let's go, all my little militant. Let's go, I'm innocent.
Dead presidents, hit them dead presidents. Dead presidents, hit them dead presidents.
Fast. Let's go,
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
Got the yellow brace. Check off in my pocket like the yellow paste. Was what I was asking. Low facility, I keep it classy. Build an empire. Yeah, that was my state of mind. Yeah, that was my state of mind. Keep the blocks over there, we call it Lego land. Meanwhile, it's like it's Amsterdam. Boy, fresh, you know who got the tropes. 16 when I bought my first rollie. Legend in my.
The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
Never ride in the extra car. Dead presidents, dead presidents. Dead presidents, hit them dead presidents.
Let's go, all my little militant. Let's go, I'm innocent.
Dead presidents, hit them dead presidents. Dead presidents, hit them dead presidents.
Fast. Let's go, I'm innocent.
The Rams are now on the clock. The Vikings are now on the clock.
I've been rolling on the freeway, I've been riding 85. I've been thinking way too much.
The Bears are now on the clock. The Colts are now on the clock. The Colts pick is in. Adam, give us the rundown.
His college career came to an abrupt end this year when he was suspended from the team. I spoke with the school's athletic director, and he told me it was due to an academic violation. He was on probation and close to failing several courses before the decision was made between the director and his coach. He was able to turn his grades around, but his draft stock took a hit when the news broke. Scouts weren't too bothered by his academic issues, but his lack of playing time made it harder to evaluate him with the rest of his class. And now that he's drafted, I don't think the team is too concerned with his grades either.
The Packers are now on the clock.
Gotta be on the thinker. I say, I can't feel my toes, but ain't gon' fold up. I was in the double law when I rolled.
I've been rolling on the freeway. I've been riding 85. I've been thinking way too much, and I'm way too gonna drive. I got anger in my chest. I got millions on my mind, and you didn't fit the picture, so I guess you want the vibe. I've been rolling on the freeway. I've been riding 85. I've been thinking way too much, and I'm way too gonna drive. I got anger in my chest. I got millions on my mind, and you didn't fit the picture, so I guess you want the vibe.
Dig what I'm saying, Chanel Drake's on me daily. Dig what I'm saying.
The Jets are now on the clock.
Dig what I'm saying, this creek alone.
The Dolphins are now on the clock.
I'm going hard, yeah. I pop in your memory, You should be glad I'm showing you sympathy, I gave you pure love out the gutter, Ever let you go, you gon' suffer, from it. I gon' do it. I gotta accept that I'm a...
The Bills are now on the clock.
That I would most ever. I shatter your dreams with this cream I make. Gotta be on the thinker. I say.
Bills just made their pick. Adam, what can you tell us about him?
One of this draft's toughest players, here's a guy who played the majority of his final collegiate season with a broken foot. Long suffering with plantar fasciitis in the affected foot, doctors discovered several hairline fractures across the first, second, and third metatarsals during a routine therapy session. Translation? His foot was essentially shattered. Recovery took months, and he used the time wisely, studying film of just about every NFL team and preparing for interviews. No surprise that he blew scouts and even a few GMs away with his knowledge of NFL offensive schemes. This is an intelligent, hard-nosed defensive back who's going to make his fair share of big plays before his professional career is over.
The Giants are now on the clock.
Doesn't feel the same. I hope it hurts you when you hear my name.
Picture me putting my city all over the map.
All right, team is now off the clock. Adam Schefter, can you tell us about their newest player?
This is a player that draft experts really didn't start talking about until the tail end of the season. The biggest topic of discussion was where the sudden change in production came from. I talked to his college position coach, and he told me that a nagging injury slowed him down early in the season. You can clearly see he favored one side over the other when he was put out on the field or even walking on the sidelines. After he was benched for a few weeks, he came back and played at a much higher level. Even so, some teams were still cautious and did a thorough medical examination at the combine to be sure he was completely recovered. The results must have been positive for the team to have just drafted him now. As long as he can stay healthy, I really like what he brings to this team.
Breaking rules like there's no laws, and I did it for a long time. If you don't like me, take a ticket, there's a long line. Nice to meet me. I think the pleasure's all mine. They've been clocking me so long, I think they lost time. Ooh, you lost. What you mean? Woo! What you mean? Woo! And now I don't trust the so what you mean? Woo! Hold up, whoa, with the what you mean? Woo! Hold up. Don't know what you think, compare me.
The 49ers are now on the clock.
Adrenaline popping, the blood will be leaking and running. Yeah. Now do what I do, I don't care if you like it or love it.
The Seahawks are now on the clock.
I got a new girl.
The Titans are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock.
They gon' call the feds. I just bought a cost an arm and leg. My mama told me take it back and get a job instead. Where's your common sense? Me and the devil got too much in common, I swear. Yeah. Born in the ghetto, I never had nothing to fear. Take it how you want it. I ain't famous like I want it, so I might just throw a hissy fit. Call up Cassie after she broke up with Diddy, yeah. I told Shorty if she talking, I ain't. And she gon' call her friends up and we did, whoa. I ain't in the talking, go chop off your lips. If I ain't in your top 10, go top off a bridge. My black boys like boys that knock off your lid. I thought y'all gon' pop off, so hop off my. What you mean? I said, what you mean? Listen, I don't trust her, so, no, I said, what you mean?
The Saints are now on the clock.
Whoa, I said, what you mean?
You thought I was finished, you thought it was over. You thought I retired, you thought I was fishing with Kobe. I'm still as ill as considered as one of the coldest. Still a put a partner rapper here like Moses. I'm throwback like a molar roller. I'm cooler than a cup of yogurt. Black flag boy, truck soldier. I'm cool with laws and Ayatollahs. Rap gods like Klops and Olga. I'm King Kong, ain't nobody told.
The Chargers are now on the clock. The Lions are now on the clock.
I'm rich. I'm Muhammad Ali.
The Redskins are now on the clock.
I'm Michael Jackson, some bad bag on get. What you mean?
The Bears. The Browns are now on the clock.
On the sand, counting up the bills with my dominant hand. Yo, choose up. Take this, appreciate it. This too. If I tear up the rim shot. I'm going global, coast to coast like my G.I. Joe present. I've yet to see a Cobra. So off my rocker got me sipping club soda. Some bombs never go off, some stars never blow up. I'm pitching in, never in the dugout. Reaching in my and I can't take a head count. Flashback, 03, things was looking run down. Now I set foot in the place, it's a luau. Killing like 10 counts. Y'all know how we get down. House with the fence around. Y'all know that we en route. Transition from the Impala to the Fisker.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
Get the dessert, left the doors up.
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
You getting comfy, I'ma let you sit there.
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
They didn't have no care, so I'ma charge retail. I brought some cause you say you want sick. If you love sick in the room, you best get well. Every dog has its day. What the no tuck? Sway Lee Winter Magazine, double XL. Floss with your Gucci on. Dipped in colors burst on the cars and the jewels. I'm a wanted man. Seats looking like they got a spray tan. When I was without, not a helping hand. I got some guys that throw it back and make me drop the cans. I told Ben Frank just to drop a pin. I could let my fit go to the highest bid. Yes, I might drop in. It all depends. Junior high, I was dreaming.
The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
Clean though. I mean, not a spec. My girl be serving looks. I can chef. Katana sword popping out my walking cane. I'm overseas, my Cali Bay like how was Spain. We getting to the money and you having issues. I bought a and it came with a wetsuit. The Buddha left me without breath. I really am a mess. I'm mooching off myself. She be hoping that I take a knee. Yes, I be open to that shrimp life. This is how we live.
The Cowboys are now on the clock.
Love the kicks and we love the hits. All in the house and I'm wrecking. If I sleep, I'm off.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
Throw the money up and make my own weather. Mommy playing tether on leather. Money talk,
It's a lecture. 80 pointers dance.
The Bears are now on the clock.
Don't hate, I'm still unaffected. Chipper on my shoulder, I move undetected. She said, pop the question got deflected. Man, them ain't my boys, them my brethren. Let's cut to the chase.
The Giants are now on the clock.
Place. My used to lava boys got it up in some flames. Stirring up the cup with my wrist souffle. Shaka Zulu.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
I told you on swing, don't say my name in vain. We bring it to your door like you rang. Spending all the money, then we watch it boomerang. With the Fendi belt, angry face like put some gold on my fingers, neck, and shoestrings. Long time no see, that's what they say when they see me, man. I've been going crazy just to.
The Raiders are now on the clock.
Who's to blame? Young whippersnapper.
The Falcons are now on the clock.
Pause, then I went to range. Call that hottie on my stage. Long week, but a great day. So it got me like sage. And on
The Packers are now on the clock.
On me, yeah, you can hate.
I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. Quarter piece, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA. I got hustle, though, ambition, flow inside my DNA. I was born like this and sworn like this, immaculate conception. I transform like this, perform like this with new weapon. I don't contemplate, I meditate, then off your head. This that put the kids to bed. This that I got realness. I just killed this cause it's in my DNA. I got millions, I got riches building in my DNA. I got dark, I got evil that rot inside my DNA. I got off, I got trouble, some heart inside my DNA. I just win again, then win again like Wimbledon I serve. Yeah, that's him again, the sound that engine in is like a bird. You see fireworks and Corvette tires skirt the boulevard. I know how you work, I know just who you are. See, use it. Your hormones probably switch inside your DNA. Problem is, all that inside your DNA. Daddy probably snitch, heritage inside your DNA. Backbone don't exist.
The Jets are now on the clock.
See my pedigree, most definitely don't tolerate the front. Like been through.
The Dolphins are now on the clock.
I know conviction, burners, boosters, ballers, dead, redemption, scholars, fathers, kids and I wish I was fed forgiveness, yeah. Soldier's DNA, born inside the beast. My expertise checked out in second grade. When I was 9, on sale motel, we didn't have nowhere to stay. At 29, I've done so well, hit cartwheel in my estate, and I'm gon' shine like I'm supposed to. Antisocial extrovert, and
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
You hurt, and passiveness never struck my nerve, and that's a riff gonna be this case. The reason my power's here on earth. Salute the truth from the prophecy. I got loyalty, got royalty inside
This is
my
why
DNA.
I say that hip-hop has done more damage to young African Americans in recent years.
I live about my DNA. This is my heritage, all I'm inheriting. Money and power, the Mecca emeritus. Tell me something, you can't tell me nothing. I'd rather do than to listen to you. My DNA not for imitation.
The Bills are now on the clock.
This how I this when you in the matrix, dodging bullets, reaping what you.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
Sleeping in the villas.
The Rams are now on the clock.
Diamond in the ceiling, marble on the floor.
The Saints are now on the clock. The Giants are now on the clock.
Hammer, dodging paparazzi through the cameras, eat it $4. Brock wearing sandals, yoga on a Monday, stretching to the fan. Watching all the snakes, curving all the fakes. Phone never own, I don't conversate, I don't compromise, I just penetrate.
The Panthers are now on the clock.
These other times, level number 9, look up in the sky, tennis on the way, sentence on the way, on the way. I got winners on the way. You ain't without a on your belt. You ain't without a ticket on your plate. You ain't sick enough to pull it on yourself. You ain't rich enough to hit the ladder skate. Tell me when destruction gonna be my fate. Gonna be a fate. Gonna be our fate. Peace to the world. Let it rotate. Money. Okay, I was gone for a minute, but I'm back now. Sit back down. Sit like everybody nowadays. Hollywood. Oh, it's like that now. I'ma show you how to act now. I'ma show 'em how to act. I'ma show you. I'ma show him how to act. Okay, now picture little Bobby, just a younger run around with his man in his hand, feeling like a man. Run, put it to your brain like. Everybody know you ain't about it. Everything you talk about, I know I can. can live without it. Red light, stop, green light, go. Everything ain't what it seemed like. I know. Hold up, what you mean? Where you been in? This is merely the beginning again. What you been living in? The box under the bridge, like Anthony Kiedis looking for something to.
The Steelers are now on the clock.
A long way from equal is how they treat us. Body of a builder with the mind of a fetus. Turn on the television and see the vision they feed us. And I wish I could erase that. Face facts. Everybody people, everybody bleed, everybody needs some. Everybody love, everybody know how it go. Everybody people, everybody bleed, everybody needs some. Everybody love, everybody know. I've been knocking Joe down like it witness. God is my witness, I'm witness, but on the real I think I need another witness. If it was 17, black dad and white mama wouldn't change a thing. Light skin, certified as a house. Go figure, in my blood is the venom master. It's like the devil playing space with the pastor, but he was born with the privilege.
The 49ers are now on the clock.
People told me as a child, as a little boy playing with his toys, I should be ashamed. And some people look ashamed when I rap, like my great granddaddy didn't take to the back. Not accepted by the ghetto. I don't give a praise God, I can see the light. Everybody talk about race this, race that. I wish I could erase that. Face facts. Everybody people, everybody bleed, everybody needs some. Everybody love, everybody know how it go. Everybody people, everybody bleed, everybody.
The Seahawks are now on the clock.
Everybody know. Okay, I was gone.
The Titans are now on the clock.
Sit back down.
The Bengals are now on the clock.
Oh, it's like that now? I'ma show you how to act now. I'ma show them how to act. I'ma show you. I'ma show them how to act.
King is born. I told you before. A king is born.
The Ravens are now on the clock.
A king is born. Oh yeah.
The Chargers are now on the clock.
Like a beast in the jungle, in the heat of the rumble, I ain't got nothing to lose. Hey, I've been fighting these hard times in the ghettos of my mind. Now it's victory that I choose. Hey, yes, my soul is blessed, the king is born. Mama, I confess I'm a bad, bad man. Ain't no one like me.
The Lions are now on the clock.
No bull about to smash out.
The Redskins are now on the clock.
I don't care what the place is, from the penthouse to pavement. You better hear what I say. Hey, yeah. Yes, my soul is blessed, the king is born. Mama, I confess I'm a bad, bad man. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend. 'Cause I've been down so long that my crown and gold is lifted. Ain't no one like me. I'm a legend, legend, legend.
The Texans are now on the clock.
Yeah.
The Browns are now on the clock.
Yeah. A king is born. Been broke before, but I've never been broken. I told you before. I am the truth now, the truth has spoken. A king is born. Oh yeah, a king is born. Yeah. Oh yeah, ain't no one like me. I'm a legend.
Vikings are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock.
Enemy. Got a code with my dogs, can't get in between. I can give them life, no more energy. Man, amen. Spent about 60 on the time, I can't even lie.
The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
I'll do or die. So on roll when I roll, must be. Amen. Man.
I can't ride Benz, I don't do peace. I beast, I gotta eat.
The Cowboys are now on the clock.
Teeth, rockin' right now, won't you come peep? I was outside.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
Why?
The Bears are now on the clock.
For you say thanks.
Amen.
The Colts are now on the clock.
My life don't know what's in store. I've been dealing with these blessings that I can't ignore. Putting up the numbers, we ain't keeping score. Amen. I here on the block, my side. Run it in the house for us 12 o'clock. Yeah, the hood love me, but you gotta watch. Amen.
I just three, I don't do sleep. Yeah, tryna sing, UV. Yeah, we gon' fall through, coming through deep.
Amen.
Yeah, packed it from the south, moved it to the west. Iced the logo on the cross, threw it on my neck. Yeah, when I rep the set, gotta stay blessed. Yeah.
Amen.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
Got a code with my dogs, can't get in between. I can give them life, no more energy. Amen.
The Raiders are now on the clock.
Everybody try to take the identity. Everybody around me turn to a friend of me. Sit back while I take on a remedy. I cannot let it get into me.
The Falcons are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock.
No Harvard, but I was a scholar. Hard knocks, and I learned to be smarter. Don't prefer to be bothered. You get if I order. That's word to my father. I will for my mother. Deal with my brothers. Keep it real. Don't talk with no. Plus I duck undercover. Gotta stay on this mission. Got a vision that's endless. They told me don't be a menace. They gon' serve me a sentence. But now I'm up in it. The illest that did it. Get the cream look. Drop it in it. Give about opinions.
The Jets are now on the clock.
I'm shining. Don't got time for the gimmicks. I'm it. Squad. 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 I'm it. Squad.
The Jaguars are now on the clock. The Chiefs are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock. The Giants are now on the clock.
Okay. Now
the Panthers are now on the clock.
It's hard to square up. Everybody got come, mama cries, dead sons. Lord, please bless them. Back to the party. I'm just pouring my. Don't give face that before, so I live it up. When a come, better get them up. That's a floss track, better get them up. I'ma keep eating this a dinner rush. I'll let you finish up. Flock of diamonds, I can promise I'm being honest. This being modest. I am your highness. I am not I am the finest. You rappers, plus you a liar. Don't idolize and I don't admire. Been doing me for like ever. I'm a better me, more clever. It's a new way. We surfing, baby, new age. That's a certain, baby. Let's take a ride. ride, let's take a ride.
The Steelers are now on the clock.
Last night, just you and I get lost tonight and lose your mind. Squad, I'm dead. 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 Squad.
The 49ers are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock. The Titans are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock.
Board life as aboard this plane. Steward this sex if I need help. Maybe what's your last name? Hopefully it still ain't been changed. Something about you make me not doubt you. I will silence my brain, scream louder. Asking when I'm gonna myself. Couple problems, my cash ain't help. Human issues too strong for tissue. False provider, war mask by wealth.
The Ravens are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock.
I see black cats in the daytime too. I see black cats on the daytime news when handcuffed wrists and his skin turned blue. I met God once at the rendezvous and felt starstruck.
Vince, the car's outside.
Got things to do, got to make my moves. I can't miss my flight and miss you too. Boo, first class seats is overrated.
The Lions are now on the clock.
Nowadays I'm overdating my street for stay well acquainted. Their morning is calling me.
The Redskins are now on the clock.
All I need.
Move your body if you came here to party. If not, then pardon me. How I'm supposed to have a good time with death and destruction's all I see. Out the sight, I'm out in my mind. The sound of sunshine is calling me. Good vibrations is all I need. All I need, all I need.
Party people, yeah. Party people, I like to see you dance. Party people, yeah. Party people, I like to see you dance. Party people, move. Party people.
The Texans are now on the clock.
This is how we do.
The Browns are now on the clock. The Vikings are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock.
Know your place, yeah, know your place, yeah. I got like right now, I'm impatient. I got women on the cell trying to give me. I still wish it would, I still wish them well. Yeah.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
Put my problems in. Only check up when the checks come. My pockets looking blessed up.
The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
They talking like they jealous of me. They talking like they never love me. They talking like they next door. I still treat them like so. Showers on the way. I've been working 25 hours every day. Pull up with the bands.
The Cowboys are now on the clock.
Pull up with the bands, have them dancing in the rain. Yo. Know your place, yeah, know your place, yeah. I got like right now. I'm in
The Broncos are now on the clock. The Bears are now on the clock.
I still wish them well, yeah. Know your place, yeah, know your place.
The Colts are now on the clock.
Right now, I'm impatient. I got women on the cell trying to give me. I still wish it would. I still wish them well, yeah. Promises and wishes, candles for my exes now. Ain't no fingers left to count my blessing now. Promises and wishes, trust me, it's been different now. No rings for the things, I gon' miss them now. Promises and wishes, why would I ever start celebrating? Why would I ever start celebrating? I'm naming all the hearts I've been breaking. I'm naming all the hearts I've been breaking. The showers on the way. I've been working 25 hours every day. Pull up with the bands, have them dancing in the rain. Pull up with
The Eagles are now on the clock.
the rain. Yo. Know your place, yeah, know your place, yeah. I got like right now, I'm impatient. I got women on the cell trying to give me. I still wish it would. I still wish them well, yeah. Know your place, yeah.
The Raiders are now on the clock.
Like right now.
The Falcons are now on the clock.
Women on the cell trying to give me. I still wish it would. I still wish them well, yeah.
The Packers are now on the clock. The Jets are now on the clock. The Dolphins are now on the clock. The Jaguars are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Chiefs are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock. The Saints are now on the clock. The Giants are now on the clock. The Panthers are now on the clock. The Steelers are now on the clock.
You know, I'm like, yeah, nice P, you know?
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
When I pull up, they notice me. Come and talk to me like Jodeci. But don't you be too close to me. Them goons you see, let it go for me. I bring them things, I bring them things. I call them, he bring them things. Mucho, I bring them things. Looking so expensive, rings and things.
The Seahawks are now on the clock. The Titans are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock.
Man, you don't want with them, bro. Oh, you, and you better get low. Extorting, you ain't got no friends. Oh, they'll be wear that like a Chanel scarf like rainbow. $1,000, this ain't your cloth. You ain't, that ain't no sauce. I can see the noodles made for poodles. I'm thinking about the La Ferrari coupe. 1.8, the option is the roof. Greens is a secret to the youth. Your goals are malnourished. Please spit the juice. Y'all be vaping, I be laden. Yes, y'all be aping. I'm Richard Mill Nation. No diamonds, just tourbillon facing with gears and sprockets with the sapphire case.
The Ravens are now on the clock.
Notice me, come and talk to me.
The Chargers are now on the clock.
You be too close to me.
The Lions are now on the clock. The Redskins are now on the clock.
Call them, he bring them things. Mucho, I bring them things. Looking so expensive, rings and things. I bring them things. I bring them things. I bring them things.
Here's a little story about a kid from Morocco. Had to show Carlito I was Benny Blanco. Check it out. Raindrop, all set. Plug, we the outlet. Child put me in the box, I'm in the box off. All the face shorty, socks off. Mac Miller, Reggie Miller, the killer, Canaries, back stiller, White Villa.
The Texans are now on the clock.
Kill him south, Lauren Hill, get up. Crib Calabasas on the hill, I had him morning, play. Beatles won't beat.
The Browns are now on the clock.
Crash cars, ain't no future in front. My homies rip your mask off.
When I pull up, they notice me. Come and talk to me like Jodeci. But don't you be too close to me. Them goons you see, let it go for me. I bring them things, I bring them things. I call them, he bring them things. Mucho, I bring them things. Looking so expensive, rings and things. I bring them things. I bring them things. I bring them things.
The Broncos are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Cowboys are now on the clock. The Broncos are now on the clock. The Bears are now on the clock. The Colts are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock.
I say, Lord, be my savior when it comes to getting this paper. Please protect me from my haters. Just say me and I won't save us. Say amen. Amen, 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 yeah. Amen. Bad boys and they can't win. Can't win, can't win, can't win, can't win. Check. Going up. We in it, we gonna. Going up. Did it like my persona. Going up. Ripping them was on us. We used to drive them Hondas. Then we pull up in the Fondas. Glow up. Walking. Show up. Baby, hold up. Glow up. Boy, don't touch. We glow up. Yeah. I'm laughing to the bank. All new blue Benny Franks. Pulled up on him in the tank. Yeah, that guy just a rap guy. I'm so mad fly in, he ain't. Let me back tight, gave me until I was going on Miami. They all cornballs. They can't stand me. I finesse. All them. I hear. Get a plan. Let's go that my whoa. No low. Got strain on yo. She post up her MCM and we like that JoJo. When we out and we see him, he always ask for photo. I say, Lord, be my savior when it come to getting this paper. Please protect me from my haters. Just say me and I won't save us. Say amen. Amen. Yeah. Amen. Bad boys and they can't win. Can't win. Check. Going up. We in it, we gonna. Going up. Did it like my persona. Going up. Ripping them was on us. We used to drive them Hondas. Then we pull up in the Fondas. Glow up. Walking. Show up. Baby, hold up. Glow up. Boy, don't touch. We glow up. She lucky. Cause she 5 mil cash in Kentucky. Know me. I walk up in demons, spend 10K just like it's nothing. I hang with the demons, they don't play by me, we cut. I was coolin', Atlanta, mixed with the Fanta. All them, I got Santa, I go monkey, all that. Gonna do just what I say. Pull up, pass the Uber in that race. She so bad, but she said. I feel guilty, I might as well just plead my case. I say, Lord, be my savior when it come to getting this paper. Please protect me from my haters. Just say me and I won't save us. Say amen. Amen. Yeah. Bad boys and they can't win. Can't win. Check. Going up. We in it, we gonna. Going up. Did it like my persona. Going up. Ripping them was on us. We used to drive them Hondas. Then we pull up in the Fondas. Glow up. Walking. Show up. Baby, hold up. Glow up. Boy, don't touch. We glow up.
I stay myself, I never change, yeah.